My name's Tony Brabazon. For those who don't know me, I'm the Dean of the College of Commerce at University College Dublin, and I'm delighted to welcome everybody here this evening. We've quite a few alum from the college, we've quite a few alum from other parts of UCD. Everybody is welcome. Now, I'd just like to say a special hello to a number of people here this evening. Firstly, I would like to very, very warmly welcome the President of UCD who is joining us tonight, Professor Orla Feely, who will be addressing us a little bit later. I'd like to extend a very, very warm welcome to members of the College of Business North American Advisory Board who are here this evening. And I'd also like to say a very special welcome to our panel, who will be talking to us a little bit later about private equity. So thank you very much in particular to Jane, who will be moderating the panel, and also to Owen, who has done a lot of the hard work in terms of bringing the panel together for this evening's event. Now, today's a really, really special day because it's the very first time we've ever held a UCD alum event in this really august location. And I think just looking out the window there really says it all. Can you really beat that particular view in New York with Central Park there just over to my right, to your left? And this building is really, really, really historic. For those of you that haven't been here before, it might be interested to know that the society was founded in 1897, so celebrating 127 years of existence. And the American-Irish Society here, it has owned this building since 1939. And when we hold alum events here in New York, we regularly tour around different locations. So over the last number of years, we've been graciously hosted by Bank of Ireland, by KPMG, by MetLife, amongst others. And we're delighted to be here tonight. And I would like to say a very, very special thank you to Susan Carey Dempsey, who made it possible. So thank you, Susan. Now, just to give a little bit of an update on how things are going in the College of Business, I've already had the opportunity to meet several people that I thought in some cases rather too many years ago for comfort. And it might be just interesting for people to hear what's going on in the college at the moment. And the college has grown at this stage now to encompass about 7,000 students. We have about 2,000 students at undergraduate level. We have about 1,500 students at postgraduate level studying MSc, MBA, PhD programs. Approximately 1,000 people undertake executive education courses in the school each year. And we have approximately 2,000 students who study with us in our Singaporean campus. A lot of people may not know that the school actually has been offering programs in Singapore for about 30 years now. And in fact, we have about 15,000 alums who've studied with us in Singapore who are making their careers all across the Southeast Asian region. So it just shows the impact of UCD on a global setting in Asia, and also, of course, here tonight in the US. Across the US, UCD has something of the order, I think, of about 15,000 alums, and about 3,000 are in the New York area. Now, what's been happening in the school over the last couple of years? Well, it's been pretty exciting. As I've indicated, the school has grown to significant size. We've recently completed the initial examination of this year's CAO figures. And for those of you who studied at undergraduate level, you may be horrified to know that the average point intake now into our undergraduate business degrees is just under 570 points. Max score is 625. If you're hitting 570, you're in about the top 6-7% of the CAO population, which was really, really remarkable. Our CAO applications this year are up by 15% in a market where the total number of applications to business schools nationally is up by about 1%. So obviously the school has taken significant market share for the second year in a row in terms of undergraduate education. And that really reflects on the quality of the programs offered by the school, and very importantly on the success of graduates when they finish with us. I'm delighted tonight that we have Federica, the Associate Dean in charge of Smurfit, in the audience as well. And Federica is doing great work in the Smurfit School, making sure that all our courses are cutting edge. We've about 24 programs running across MSc, MBA in the Smurfit School at the moment. And a lot of those are focused very, very carefully on areas of strategic importance for the country. Digital business, food business, areas where a significant number of graduates find employment. Now, more broadly in UCD, it's a really, really exciting time. Last May, Orla was appointed president of the university. She's 10th president of UCD. And Orla has a deep affinity with the US, having studied in the US for both her master's and her PhD in electronic engineering in University of California, Berkeley. And it's no coincidence that Orla has taken time out of a really, really busy schedule to come over for this evening's alum event, in that UCD is currently looking to engage in deepening its relationship with alums in the US, with academic partners in the US, and very, very importantly, with industry and government links in the US. So over the next couple of years, I think we're going to see quite investment by the university in terms of deepening our links with the United States. And I think that will be good for you, our alums. Hopefully it'll mean more alum events will be organised, you'll have more opportunities to meet with each other across the US, and also to keep in touch with what's happening in Ireland and in UCD. And also we'll be looking to deepen our partnership links from a teaching and research point of view with leading US institutions. Just to give a little flavour of that, in executive education activities in the School of Business at the moment, we're currently tendering for some significant customised executive education programmes, and we're doing that on one tender working with New York University Stern School of Business here, and also Chicago Booth working with us on another tender, just to kind of give us a little snapshot of some of the linkages that we are developing. Now, we're at a very, very interesting time in UCD's development at the moment. As a university, we've just gone over about 40,000 students in total, which is a pretty significant size by global standards. And Orla is currently looking at our strategic direction for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. And it's a very, very significant strategic renewal process underway at the moment, being led by Orla and the senior management team of the university. And as part of that process, Orla will be meeting with the North American Advisory Board of the School of Business here in New York tomorrow to get their input into the strategic planning process. So what I'd like to do now is to invite our president up to address us. So Orla, over to you.
Thanks very much, Tony Deve Golair. Thank you all for coming along this evening to enjoy what I hope will be a really interesting opportunity to network and to hear from some of our wonderful graduates and to talk great things about UCD. I love coming over to the United States. I first came here when I was 19 on a J1 visa, and there's something about being back here. I always think, despite all evidence to the contrary, I feel as if I'm 19 again whenever I land back in the United States. I first of all came over this summer when I finished my third year in college on a J1 visa. I was based in Silicon Valley, but for some reason we had to stop here for a night and stay in the YMCA and somewhere downtown here, and I remember it very clearly. And then I liked it all so much that I came back when I graduated. Then the following year I came back to the West Coast for my PhD in Berkeley. And it was just such an interesting time for those of us graduating out of degrees in Ireland. Ireland was in a very gloomy place economically, as many of you will remember and many of the rest of you will know, back in the 1980s. But those of us who were young at that time had that energy and ambition that I think we felt when we came to the United States. We found that energy and ambition reflected to us here in a way that it was not back home at that time. So for me and for many of my generation in Ireland, it was really, really formative for us at that stage of our country's development and our personal development to come over to the United States and feel the energy and dynamism of this country, this economy and this society. So I will be forever grateful for my time in the United States, which was such a happy and formative time for me. And of course then during my years in Berkeley, Ireland changed. And, in my early years in Berkeley, you'd say you're from Ireland, people would smile, the head would tilt. No, isn't that cute? And isn't that nice? You're from Ireland and leprechauns and all that. But, as the years wound on into the early 90s, people would kind of lean in a little bit when you'd say you're from Ireland, because they'd say, oh, I've heard what's going on in Ireland. Tell me more about it. Tell me about your education. Tell me about your technology. And the country really, really transformed through that period. So that when I went back, when I graduated from Berkeley, and that was a big decision point for me, do I stay in Silicon Valley, as many of my friends did, and joined fledgling companies that went on to super, super greatness? I came back to UCD, which has gone on to super greatness also. And so I have no regrets about that. But it was, such an interesting time to be coming back to Ireland. And that's part of, why I did go back to Ireland, because there was such energy and excitement around Ireland and the Irish success story at that time of the early 90s. And I've seen then through my years as a lecturer and professor in electronic engineering in UCD, then I became vice president for research and innovation. So I saw this incredible transformation of Ireland. I saw how the United States has played such a significant role in that, and I've seen how UCD has played such a significant role in that. And I've argued on occasions like this, and nobody has yet contradicted me. I hope it won't be tonight for the first time. I would say there is no institution that has done more to support that Irish success story and development than UCD. If you look at the scale of UCD, for the scale of our country, and you look at our graduates, you look at how they have fanned out around the world with such extraordinary success, bringing ambition, bringing ideas, bringing excitement. I am so, so proud of what UCD has done to support the Irish success story and the US-Ireland success story. And that really is a US-Ireland story in both directions, and people like Kevin O'Malley know this very well. We all know the story of US foreign direct investment into Ireland, how that has transformed our country, but Ireland is the 9th largest foreign direct investor into the United States. And when you think of the size of our tiny country, what a story that is. What a story of success. So the cultural links between our countries, the economic links, these are in our DNA collectively. And it's so important to me that as president of UCD, I continue to build on those and think about how we can develop them for the benefit of US and Ireland, and also for the benefit of UCD. So, as Tony said, I was appointed president of UCD on the 1st of May. It's the most extraordinary honour, and I'm enjoying the job absolutely enormously. And when I think of the things that I love about the job, probably first and foremost is the people. Getting out to meet our alumni and our wonderful students and our wonderful faculty. And in many ways, it's a challenging time, I think, to be a student at this time. It's a very complex world, as you know. Last week we had through UCD the Geoffrey Hinton, who's known as the godfather of AI, hugely distinguished figure in modern AI. And he was speaking to our students, and he said to them that he feels it's a good time to be 76. Which, for those of us who are not 76, and certainly our students are not 76 for the most part, that's a challenge for us. And for me to think about, how do we educate our students to deliver success through this enormously disruptive time? I'm very conscious of the fact that the students who are with us now, they'll still be in their working lives in the second half of this enormously disruptive century. How do we train our students to deliver the same success as UCD graduates, as our many distinguished graduates in this room here? So that's a big challenge and an opportunity for us in UCD. But when I meet the energy of our students, and again, as president, you see the sports success and the musical success and the drama success and debating. You see our students engaging in so many walks of life. It's a real honour. And again, you can be confident that the current UCD generation of students, they are wonderful, and they are primed for success, and it is our job to support them into that. Our research and innovation, my previous job, again, we've got brilliant things happening in UCD. We are say, if you look at many of you may have heard of the European Framework Funding Programmes, Horizon Europe is the current one. UCD is well up in the top 15, 16 or so in the EU in terms of drawing down European research funding. Again, for the size of Ireland, this is really significant and really new. We wouldn't have had that level of success before. We're way out in front of the Irish universities in bringing in EU research funding. We are PitchBook, some of you may know PitchBook, they do surveys of, venture investors and entrepreneurial success. So they looked at entrepreneurial success stories and they traced back to see these entrepreneurs, where did they get their education? And they did this in Europe, and UCD ranks 5th in Europe and 1st in the EU for the success of our undergraduates in going on to develop entrepreneurial success. So the top is something like Oxford, Cambridge, London School of Economics, maybe the University of London, and then us. So, that is the kind of company I want UCD to be keeping. We're doing fantastic research in every area of our scientific and humanities disciplines. One story that I love, and colleagues have heard me tell this story many times, is that last December we launched Ireland's first satellite, designed and built in UCD. And it was a wonderful success story, a really student-led project developed by our students over many generations of student graduations and so on, of course supervised by our wonderful professors. And again, a great success story. And to think that there is a satellite up there at the moment, made in Belfield, it's something that I'm so proud of, and something that, I think we can all take great pride in. And that's just one example. I could tell you many, many more. And another thing of which I'm so proud is our wonderful Belfield campus. And I know many of you are from our wonderful Blackrock campus, which is also wonderful. But do drop by all our campuses, and in particular Belfield when you're back in Dublin next, because you will see a very, very different Belfield to the one that you may have studied on. We've got an enormous building programme underway and an enormous ambition to do so much more. One building that I'm really, really keen to advance is our library. The library's in the centre of Belfield there, those of you who know Belfield, beside the lake. A kind of a saddish building. Yeah. Maybe not the greatest memories for some of you, but we've just redone the 3rd floor of the library, and it's fabulous. It's like the kind of fanciest kind of business lounge you've ever been in, and the students are just flocking to it. And we want to build all the way up and down the library to make it much more of a welcoming, student-focused experience. We've got brilliant cultural collections there, and we want to bring them out to the world in really new and exciting ways. So these are just some of the ambitions. We've got loads going on. Student sports facilities, we're doing way more there in our science, in our Newman, the old arts building, Lyons Farm just outside Dublin. All these are kind of plans rattling around my head and my colleagues' heads at the moment. We really, really want to make Belfield the fabulous campus that we know it, that we really want it to be, but it's already such a wonderful campus. And again, it's something that I feel very much as president, when you bring people through from other world-leading universities, their jaws just drop at the fantastic campus that we have. We tend to take these things for granted, but when you see things through others' eyes, you realise, my goodness, we have such a story to tell in UCD. We have such facility with such people. We are, in my mind, the only Irish university with the scale and the substance and the desire to get out there into the world and make things happen. We are an outward-facing university. We always have been. In Ireland, since the foundation of the Irish state almost exactly 100 years ago, it was UCD people, left, right, up and down that story, and has been ever since. So it's my job to take that forward now into the next iteration of UCD. Last week, as part of all this, we launched our North America engagement strategy, which is a really, really important document and strategy for us, because for all the reasons that I said there earlier, our engagement in North America and in the United States is so important to us. And if you look through the strategy, what do we want to do? We want to build our partnerships. And we've got fantastic partnerships with leading US universities who see in UCD the kind of institution they recognise and that they want to do business with. On Friday, when I get back, I'm meeting the president of Georgetown. Next week, we've got the president of UMass coming through. And this is just typical. We've got Anthony Fauci through on Thursday. That's why I'm flying back. Just arrived this afternoon. I'm flying back tomorrow night, and we'll be having lunch with Anthony Fauci on Thursday. So again, leading US researchers, institutions, they see in UCD an institution they can do business with. So we want to encourage that. We want to grow our student and staff mobility. This is we've got the largest cohort of our international students in UCD come from the United States. They are brilliant students to have in classes. They are dynamic and energetic, and they stick their hand up and answer questions where Irish students are kind of shirking a little bit. So we love them. We love them. And we love to have our students go over to the United States. So we want to grow our mobility. We want to grow our ability to attract talent at all levels, student talent from the United States into Ireland and staff talent. We really, really want to grow links with our alumni in North America. That's part of what today is all about. We want you to feel value. We want you to feel pride in UCD. We want you to feel value from your association with UCD. Those of you who are very established here, we want you to continue to fly the flag for UCD. And those of you who are new to New York, we want you to find kind of a landing spot within New York, thanks to the UCD alumni community. So there's so many ways in which our alumni support us, through mentoring, through scholarship support, through all the ways in which you wave our flag, and we really want to support that. And we want to grow our reputation in North America as well. We want, again, UCD to be a source of pride to all our community. So we want to build that story, build that reputation, and that's part of what tonight is all about. So thank you all for being here. By being here tonight, you are part of our story, you are part of our reputation, and I'm so delighted to be here to meet you. I told you I came over to Berkeley when I was 20. I have twin boys, they're both 20. One is in UCD, one is in another Dublin university that shall remain nameless. So he's the one who's written out of the will, but yeah. No, he's not. He's not. But they're both coming over to the United States for the fall semester as part of a study abroad. One is studying engineering, like myself. He's going to the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, great engineering school. And the other is studying business. He's going to UC San Diego for the semester. So for me, it feels like, the cycle of life. When I was 20, I was heading off to Berkeley, and now I see my sons, they're 20, and they're heading off for their study abroad. And I really hope that North America that the United States will be as formative for them as it was for me. So thanks for all that you do. Gur míle maith agaibh go léir. And now I'll hand over for the next and most valuable part of tonight, which is the panel discussion. And I'm, again, so grateful. This is the kind of event that we want to be having for our alumni in UCD. So I'm going to hand over now to Jane McCooey. Thank you so much, Jane, for chairing our panel. And you'll introduce your panellists and take people through the discussion. So thank you all. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Very close.
I know, to line up the troops here. So that was amazing. Thank you so much, Professor President Feely. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. First of all, special thanks to Audrey and Gillian. I don't know where they are, but they've put in so much work to get this event pulled together. So without them, we wouldn't be here in this magnificent venue and this stunning evening. So thank you so much for coming. What an honour it is to meet, the new president of UCD, the first lady president, which we want to really acknowledge and appreciate. Thank you so much. And to hear your experience and ambition just now, it was really inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thanks also to Anthony Brabazon. That was brilliant to hear what the College of Business are doing. And just on that note, I think the vibrancy, and many of you know this, the vibrancy of the Irish and Irish American community in New York is real. And so we really have a place and have a role to establish those deep links to continue that ambition and energy that you just talked about. And that really resonated with me, and I know that it will with many other here, with all of you here. So I have the pleasure of moderating the panel for this evening. So we're going to hear from some really accomplished panellists working in the private equity industry in New York. I'll just tell you really quickly about me. So my name is Jane McCooey. and I am an Executive Director and the Chief Operating Officer of Tech and Data Legal at Morgan Stanley. So I graduated from UCD in 2009. I did law with French law, and so I'm originally from Armagh. Someone said, I didn't know you went to UCD, I thought all the Northerners went to Queen's, but no, Rhiannon, I think, yeah. So no, very proud of UCD, loved. I was an anomaly, you know, that I didn't go to Queen's or Jordanstown, but best decision, it really was. So yeah, then after that I went to Cambridge, I was in Brussels for a few years, I worked at the European Commission and a law firm, Freshfields, and then I've been in New York for just over 10 years. I worked first at a large law firm here, Davis Polk & Wardwell, and I've been at Morgan Stanley just for nearly 2 years now. So yeah, that's my story. I'm also, I have to give a quick shout out, the founder and CEO of a non-profit here called Women with Ambition. So it's a professional network for Irish and Irish American women. We do a lot of events and different things. We have a few members in the audience, so anybody that is interested in getting involved, please do, because there's lots of opportunity there as well. So now on to our panelists. We did a dress rehearsal in the names yesterday, so hopefully this works out. So Owen Dwan.
That's right.
So he's a managing director at Insight Partners since 2021, where he runs Insight's Opportunities Fund Strategies. Prior to Insight, Owen spent 13 years as an investor in public and private technology companies, including 8 years at Guggenheim Partners and 5 years at the private equity arm of Elliott Management. Originally from Dublin, Owen graduated in 2003 with a Bachelor of Commerce and in 2008 with a Master's in Finance, both from UCD. So he's now been here in New York for over 15 years, and he sits on the boards of the North American Advisory Board of UCD College of Business, as well as New York's Irish Rep and the Children's Medical Research Foundation. So that's Owen. Kathy, that's a lot. Kathy Basquel is a vice president on the investment team at Tiger Infrastructure Partners. At Tiger, she is focused on transaction execution and portfolio management and assists with Tiger's ESG strategy. Previously, Kathy was an associate at the Blackstone Group in the European real estate team in London and a member of the debt restructuring group at Deloitte Corporate Finance in Dublin. Kathy currently sits on the board of the Women's Infrastructure Network of New York, also originally from Dublin, but proudly via Mayo. Kathy graduated from UCD in 2013, also with a Bachelor of Commerce, and she has an MBA from Harvard Business School, and she has been here nearly 3 years living and working in New York. And then last but not least, Jamie Minturn is a principal at CapVest based out of the New York office. At CapVest, he focuses on deal execution, portfolio management and origination. Prior to CapVest, he was in the investment banking division of Credit Suisse in London, originally from Dublin as well. Jamie graduated in 2014 with a Bachelor of Commerce and in 2015 with a Master's of Accounting, both from UCD, and you have been here for the last 13 months?
Yep.
Living and working in New York. So that's our very accomplished panel.
3 dubs.
3 dubs, right? Yeah. And then they tried to justify various other counties that they wanted to leverage, but I don't know. So, but no, it's amazing to have you all. Thank you so much. So first of all, let's bring it back to where you all started and why everybody's here. You know, we all attended, our connection with and our love for UCD. So I'd love to know, to each of you, start maybe down the line, what brought you to UCD, and was there a person, event or moment during your time there that really fundamentally shaped your career, and you know, why was that important? So start with you.
Want to start with me?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll go down this way.
Yeah, so I grew up pretty close to UCD. I grew up in Leopardstown, and I went to a Gael school across the street called Colashstone. So I basically grew up in the shadow of UCD. I learned to ride my bike in UCD, and I used to, play football there growing up. So it was never sort of in doubt where I wanted to go. And the BCom had a Erasmus option, which I took advantage of. So I did a year in Amsterdam, which was fun when I was 19. And also it allowed me to graduate in 3 years versus best was 4 years. So I could get started working earlier, which was important. And then I went back and I did the MSc in finance because I just wanted to further my education in finance. And so I did Belfield and then the Smurfit School.
Brilliant.
So I just kind of grew up in the area, basically.
Yeah. So UCD's actual physical building fundamentally shaped you, right?
Yeah. My mother actually in the 60s was in Kerrysford when it was the Teachers College.
Okay.
So the cycle of life, I was there, 45 years later.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. What about you, Kathy?
Yeah, I was kind of between, first I was kind of thinking that the course, and I was actually looking at things like medicine and very different stuff, but my dad was an accountant, so he'd just been kind of relocated to the US for a short time, so I thought provides lots of opportunities that I wouldn't know where my career would take me. So I went the business route, and then looking at UCD, commerce had all these accounting accreditations, and because in my mind the only business career had accounting, I just knew I had to do that. And then thirdly, I played field hockey, and UCD was better than Trinity at that, so I want to do that. And then just in terms of like a thing that maybe shaped me when I was there, I think the smartest person I knew at 17, 18 was a guy from my local school who was in economics and finance. And I was really curious like why he was doing that. I was like, you don't get accounting accreditations, you don't work for the Big Four, like you work for Morgan Stanley, like what company is that? Like, this sort of thing. But I started kind of going to events with him and met, really sort of motivated people all looking for banking jobs, and the London finance trip, and it sort of gave me a whole insight into this sector that I know real experience in before, and probably shaped where I was going to go after that.
Jamie?
I just reflecting on it there. I think when I was 18 filling out the CAO form, I'm glad it's not 575 that's needed now to get into commerce, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I was looking at options, and commerce gave, it kind of hit every topic without going into being a specialist in anything, and so opened up a lot of opportunities thereafter. And also, when in doubt, go with what you know. And my dad did commerce, my uncle did commerce. I can go on for 5 minutes. A lot of family members went through Belfield and the BCom, and so obviously looked up to them when you're that age, and inspired and have aspirations to get to where they went to. So following that path seemed most sensible as well. So that's where I am.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'd love to better understand what led each of you to your current roles in private equity. But I'm not sure what everybody's understanding of that sort of world is. So maybe we just set a baseline definition, like maybe some are working in private equity, maybe some want to move into private equity for some other area of finance. So Owen, maybe at a very high level, can you please explain how private equity fits in the context of the overall finance industry and sort of the general mechanics of working in private equity?
Sure, I'll definitely try. Okay, so my job basically has 4 or 5 pieces. Number one, insurance companies, endowment funds, and very wealthy people need to invest their money, and they take a portion of it and they invest in private markets, but they don't know how to do it themselves, so they give it to institutions like us. So we take their money, and then we pool it with a bunch of other people's money to create what's called a fund, and we raise a fund every 4 years or so. And then my job is to go and find excellent companies to buy. We buy an excellent company, we spend 3 or 4 years making it better, either through expanding into new markets, buying other companies. Maybe you're doing a merger, and then you can either take it public or you can sell it to somebody else. So you buy something for $1, you sell it for $3, and you sell it in the future. We keep 20% of the $3, and then the rest goes back to the insurance companies, the endowment funds, and the wealthy people who give us money to manage for them. So that's basically the cycle.
Yeah.
And then when we give them money back, we go back to them the next day and say, hey, we want to raise another fund? And then the cycle just continues and continues.
Brilliant,
so
okay.
Think about it like a small sliver, subsegment of the larger finance world of public equity and bonds and everything.
Okay, super interesting. So, given that it is really quite specialized, would love to know how each of you found yourself in the private equity world. Again, maybe there are people working here, but also are others that would like to explore it further. So maybe could each of you, walk us through your journeys since leaving UCD and how you've ended up in your current private equity role. And specifically, I guess I'm interested, was it linear? Is it something you always knew you wanted to do? Or were there certain opportunities that presented themselves? Maybe we start that way. Yeah.
Sure. I was hoping to leverage off Owen's answer, actually. No, I think I always had a good idea. I did want to go into private equity. Again, probably from experience of family members that kind of had early on internships, which helped me kind of think about what I wanted to do. And why private equity was interesting. It was interesting because you get a full experience across the board, across every functional area, every part of a business, the entire capital structure from debt to equity. So it's a full immersive business experience. But also you're not, you don't have management responsibility, basically. And so I think a key thing being in private equity, you need to be curious, you need to want to constantly learn. And what I loved about it was you've multiple portfolio companies in different industries, in different geographies, and so you're always learning. And so that's where I wanted to end up, how I got there. Very clear that you kind of have to go through, coming from Dublin looking outwards, it was kind of have to go through a London investment bank if you wanted to end up in certain names, or a New York investment bank. And so it was an internship in every summer in UCD. Actually, UCD were fantastic in that sense, because I only got my KPMG internship from doing the KPMG case study in Quint School, and that then got me to my Credit Suisse internship, which then got me a job offer in London. And so that's how the ball got rolling. And then once at Credit Suisse, it was lucky enough platform where you get exposure to various different types of private equity firms and corporates. And so I'd say rather than figuring out which one was best from an experience perspective, I think crossed a lot of names out from a culture perspective. So it's like, I don't want to end up there. And then had a kind of short list and went and tried to get an offer there. So that was the route. Sounds a lot more planned than it actually was. I think pivoting along the way was needed, and I'd say a lot of luck as well. So I think relationships, right place at right time, and kind of as I've learned, as you're kind of hiring people now, it kind of depends on what mood everyone is going into the room. So you need things to fall your way, and thankfully they did. So yeah.
That's brilliant. And Kathy, what about you? Were you as clear?
No, I'm like trying to keep it short, but definitely not linear. I think, so I'd sort of had this accounting thing in my head, but I'd done an internship in London in banking, but not investment banking in my penultimate year. So I kind of was a bit risk averse, and I thought I'd go to corporate finance at Deloitte. I'm getting the accounting exams, but I'm also doing M&A, which is like what I should be doing because that's what my friends in London are doing. So then I went in and they assigned me to the restructuring team, which was not M&A. And I tried everything to get out of that restructuring team, and lobbied for a rotation. But then that was super helpful. I go to the M&A team, and actually it's like 2014 in Ireland. There's not much M&A activity going on. Whereas the restructuring team is like flat out the door busy because all these like non-performing loan book sales are going on, all these international investors coming in buying bad debt. And basically Deloitte's job in this was to sell the property attached to that. So I was like basically a glorified property salesperson for a few years. But I got really good experience, and it was just a very kind of busy time in the market. And who ended up being my biggest client at Deloitte, but Goldman Sachs. And an opportunity came up to do a secondment there for 6 months while I was at Deloitte. And that was kind of my first experience to private equity, even though I still did not know that actually was a private equity kind of role and situation. And I was doing more, not investing work, but kind of portfolio level, reviewing returns, things like that. So then finished up at Deloitte, great experience, but knew I wanted to go to London. So went to London, no job, interviewed at every bank. Obviously they wouldn't give me a job because I was doing property sales before. And but what I did get was the role I took at Blackstone was very similar to that Goldman's role, so that it all kind of builds on each other. And resumes can be deceiving, like Blackstone, great name on the resume. My role was not investment work, very sort of portfolio analysis, but we worked very closely with the investment team and the asset management team. And at this point I was pretty focused on getting an MBA, so I thought big US brand, this is good. And I tried to sort of offer my services to the asset management team, even though I couldn't really do any of the things they were doing. Can I do projects, etc., to sort of build up some experience. And then, but at the time I was applying for my MBA. At this point, didn't want to do real estate, wanted to move into the investment team. Because at this point I did, at 26, I knew what investment was at that point. And applied to a few MBAs, to the GMAT more times than I'd like to publicly say. And but got into Harvard. And now I thought, okay, now this should be like pretty easy, you know, like let's go, like offer me a job. And turns out, well, you guys knew this way ahead of me, that you need investment banking experience and investing experience actually to get a private equity job. So I got an internship pretty quickly actually in a pension fund in an infrastructure investing role, but it was actually ended up being a COVID internship. Didn't really honestly do much. Now looking back, I thought I was really busy. I don't know what I was doing that summer, but it wasn't really a fit. So came back to my second year, and that was when like I interviewed just everywhere to try and get a job. And a lot of places, you know, opened. I'd get interviews very quickly because I had Goldman's on my resume, I had Blackstone on my resume, and then they would talk to me. They were like, "You've no investment experience, like clearly no." So, so I had to really take a step back and actually do a load of interview prep, a load of learning the models, figuring all that stuff out with, you know, with peers, with anyone who would talk to me. And I eventually got my job offer, a few, but all at the same time, very late, like April of my final year. And it's interesting because a really long job process to get there. But now in New York, I know so many people because I spoke to them all like during my process. They're like, "I feel like I know you from somewhere." I'm like, yeah. You might. And the other thing is like that this is, you know, 10 years now into my career, like this is the first time that this is a role I'm aligned exactly what I want to be doing. I'm working in energy transition, I've got my skills, but it took, you know, so much pivoting and changing around to get there.
That's amazing, like what resilience, and amazing that you knew from just that Goldman Sachs comment that that's what you wanted to do, and then you kept plugging away to find a way to do it. That's unreal, Kathy, well done. Okay, Owen, you're up. So I know that was amazing, so I'm a bit like, wow, maybe I should have done private equity. So what led you to your role?
Yeah, so my experience is completely different. My father's a civil engineer and my mother's a school teacher, so I had nobody really that I knew did finance. So I came here on a J1 after my third year, and I ended up getting a job in a bar on Wall Street, and I never went home. I stayed for 3 years, ended up running the bar, and it was called 85 West Cocktail Bar. It's not there anymore. It collapsed during the 08-09 downturn. But it was right off of Wall Street, and all these hotshots used to come in, and, you know, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and like drink their martinis. And I got to know them all because I was the bartender, and then I was the bar manager. And I was like, none of these people are that smart. Like, they're not smarter than anyone I know. So I was like, all right, let me get onto Wall Street. This is easy. And so I was like, all right, go back to Ireland. It's 05, 06. Ireland's booming. Like, I'll go back to Smurfit, get a finance degree, and then go, you know, work at Anglo or Davies or whatever, Lehman Brothers or Bear Stearns. And of course, they're all gone now. So I graduated September 08. My first day, I got hired by Guggenheim Partners, which was run by a guy called Todd Bowley, who at the time nobody knew, but now most people do because he bought Chelsea Football Club. My first day at Guggenheim was the day that Lehman Brothers collapsed. That Monday, September 6th or 8th, 2008. And I had no idea what I was doing. And then the fires everywhere, and they're like, do this, build this model, do this. And I was like, I had no clue. So anyway, I put my head down and worked there for 9 years, and then I got headhunted to work at a hedge fund called Elliott Management. And I worked there for 5 years. And then 3 years ago, I got asked to come over and work for Insight, and all we do is software. So I was lucky, though, that originally with Guggenheim, when you're an analyst, on your first day, basically, you know, you don't know this stuff until you're senior yourself. But what happens is all the senior people basically are like, I like Alan, like I want him on my team, and they trade you for other people. But you, like, I'll trade you Jane and Alan for, you know, Kathy and Jamie or whatever. And no, you don't know this. You think you're special when you're chosen. So anyway, I got put on the software team, which is brilliant. But, you know, also the other teams were like paper and packaging, like shipping, like really boring industries. And I got put on software. It was totally luck of the draw. So that's all I've been doing now for 16 years is software investing.
Wow.
Yeah, so very, there's obviously tons of like twists and turns along the way, but that's the short version.
That's class. And then Jamie, you touched on this a wee bit already, but do you have any practical advice for people who maybe are thinking about pivoting or getting into, you know, private equity in terms of qualifications, you know, experience? You have touched on it a wee bit, but like real practical nuggets.
I think experience is the word that matters there. You know, Owen kind of went through how private equity works, and you turn the $1 into $3. It's not always that simple in terms of getting there, and it's what we do from a CapFest perspective is we partner with specialists or super smart people in their space and back them and then partner with them and invest in them. And I think 3 very different paths into private equity that we just went through, but it doesn't necessarily have to be through a fund. A ton of people I know do it on a deal-by-deal basis, or you find a way that I think, how I got the job at CapFest and friends at other places is you kind of have to convince someone of what your value add would be, or the experience that you'd bring to the table. So for me, I did a ton in food when I was at Credit Suisse, and CapFest at the time were doing a ton in food, and that was the experience that I leveraged. And so rather than your point in applying to loads of places and getting rejected, like I did 25 applications and got 2 interviews. And the first one, it was kind of generic for every interview, but then you realize you have to convince the person at the other side of the table what value add you're going to bring, and you have to learn a lot about them, and you have to it's as much you're telling your story and what value you're going to bring as much as a qualification. And in London, and especially in the US, everyone has amazing qualifications. And it's how you differentiate yourself. And I think that's why you see so many successful Irish people, I think, in London and New York, because everyone else has same qualifications, same business experience necessarily, but we're almost all of us are blessed with also being able to talk and tell a story and convince people that we know what we're talking about, and building relationships. And as I'm kind of figuring out as I go on and on and on, that's the most important thing. You're not investing in a business. Well, sometimes it's amazing software, but 9 times out of 10, it's just because the management team are great, and it's all about that relationship building and trust, and realizing that this thing could go up, it could also go down, and you're there in good times and bad times, and probably for 5 years, 7 years, sometimes 10 years, and do you want to work with that person throughout all of that? And so the relationship point is super important, and is a bit of an advantage that almost everyone here will have, just given the experience. So that's what I'd say.
Brilliant, cool, thank you. And then just quickly, Owen and Kathy, are there some interesting trends that you can tell us about that you're working on, like ESG stuff, AI stuff, cyber? I don't know, maybe you're not working on any of those things, but just like what excites you about the things that you're working on?
Yeah, I think 2 things at least that I'm sort of interacting with a lot at the moment are, one, just the rise in private credit, and there's probably a lot of jobs there, and it's in a form of investing, by the way. But so now like 90% of these private equity deals and leveraged buyouts are being funded by a pocket of the market that just didn't really exist like 10 years ago. And it provides a lot of liquidity, and it's kind of interesting and how that's available to us now, but at maybe high interest rates for deals. And then the other big thing, and that kind of interacts sort of every day in my area, is just the interest in infrastructure and the energy transition. Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but BlackRock did this massive acquisition of Global Infrastructure Partners in January because their investors want infrastructure and energy transition exposure, and that's obviously in part in the US driven by all of this investment available from the government through the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill. So day to day, how that's translating is I look at a lot of EV charging deals, and we have an EV charging investment in Europe, for example, and you would think, okay, we can just bring this investment thesis over to the US, but it's interesting that it's just so different, and not just because Europe's ahead and the US will get there, but because of just specific dynamics to the market of a change in government in the US tomorrow could change all the legislation, and the US attitude and towards having, driving long distances and having truck ownership, that has a big effect on actually how EV ownership will change in the US. So those are just kind of some areas that we're pretty focused on and looking at a lot.
Great. What about you, Owen?
Yeah, I mean, two massive trends are one, cybersecurity, and the other one obviously is AI. But I don't think there's much I can say on either here that's going to sort of be very enlightening. But I did want to go back to what Jamie was talking about in terms of networking and mentorship. So like the absolute most valuable thing I've ever done was learn how to network. So there's practical ways of doing it. There's the Toastmasters, Dale Carnegie, and then there's obviously just experience. Like if people are inviting you to a business conference or a business lunch or whatever, just go. Even if you have to work 2 hours later in the night, or you have to work on the Saturday or whatnot, just show up. Showing up is critically important, because you just don't know who's going to be there and who's the person who's going to end up being your best friend or a mentor or a future boss or future kind of somebody you're going to start a business with or whatnot. These things just happen out of nowhere. And get mentors. Just reach out to people. Say, I know you're busy. Can I meet you once a quarter? Wherever you want. If you get the train from Jersey to New York, I'll go out to Jersey and I'll get the train with you back into New York. Or if you have to be at the office at 7:30, I'll meet you at 6 for breakfast, and I'll buy you breakfast or whatnot. Just make it easy on them and ask. Nobody will ever say no. I mean, if they do, then they're, you probably don't want them as a mentor anyway. And then pay it back. Absolutely pay it back. Because if you're 30 and you're looking to become an MD or whatnot, or a partner, and you're trying to get mentors who are partners, there's analysts and associates that want mentors. So, that's the best thing you can do. And I think the alumni network in New York, the most practical and actually valuable, tangible thing that can be done is create that virtuous cycle of mentors and mentees and mentors and mentees. And these events are very helpful, I think, in creating that.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And that does move us to like our more general theme of, career development and like advice and tips and tricks from you all, which really isn't specific to finance or private equity at all. So, is there a specific core characteristic or trait or skill that you think has propelled each of you in your career success?
Why are you all looking at me? I guess I'll go. I think, from my perspective, I get bored fairly quickly if I'm doing the same thing for too long. And I always want to learn and have new experiences, meet new people. And that's, from my perspective, and ditto in terms of people we hire and people we work with, is that desire to learn, to go get, it keeps you going, and it always in the right direction, I think. And an example of that, and just going back to the energy transition point, is that's obviously been a key theme from all of our LPs who are the institutions who are investing in funds, and how you play that. But a core part of then what gets left behind is essentially like key core parts of the economy that mightn't necessarily be energy friendly or part of that transition. But if you forget about them, the lights aren't going to turn on. And so, a key part of that from a trend perspective as well is how can you still invest in that, conscious of where the world needs to get to, but also by, I guess, investing in what is the core of the economy today, and how do you get the balance and all of that good stuff. And so, educating yourself on that, speaking with people, looking at various different types of businesses. That's I guess what I do and how I get out of bed in the morning, and because you're interested, if you know what I mean. And that's worked all right for me so far. So.
And how have you manifested that, your constant desire to learn? How have you showed that to the various employers you've had? Just through the different experiences?
I think it's the, it's very easy to say no to things. You can always come up with an excuse, basically. And it's one being, you'll get asked to do things you don't necessarily want to do, or you'd prefer to be spending time elsewhere. It's say yes, dive in, figure out an interesting angle as to why you want to dive in. And then also, I think, proactivity. That's a key part, and I think employers might necessarily realize that eventually, but it gets through gradually,
Brilliant.
and that's what kind of stands out. So.
Great. And then Kathy, what about you? Like a characteristic or skill? I think we all know how resilient you are, but
I think don't know about that. But I think some of it honestly is what you're saying. I think I've been good at like molding what I've got given into like what I need it to be. So in Deloitte, it was, not M&A, but I somehow got like a banking experience out of it. And, Blackstone, I was in this role that was not that interesting, but tried to get projects and leverage them to make it more interesting and etc. And then similarly, at my current role, like my fund is an infra fund, but I've kind of, tried to build my niche in the energy transition because that's what I kind of am most interested in. So I think we've all been in jobs or signed up to things that weren't what you expected or what you were advertised, and it's kind of like trying to shape it to what you need it to be or what you're interested in.
brilliant. And Owen?
What was the question?
What have you?
I'm joking. So core characteristic.
Attention to detail.
Right?
No, I was only joking. Just trying to lighten the mood. Core characteristic, I'm just an extremely hard worker. And just in terms of sort of advice or kind of ways to approach it, my first boss gave me 2 great pieces of advice that I always try and remember. It was like 08, 09, I was really paranoid about getting fired because everyone I knew was getting fired. Pretty much my whole graduating class from Smurfit, there was 25 of them. They all ended up landing jobs at Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, Anglo, a bunch of other places, and they all were getting fired. So I said to him, how can I not get fired? Like, how do I like not get fired? He was 20, he's like young as well. And he said, keep taking work off my plate. So I thought that was pretty smart. So I try and remember that. So I guess there's more to that though. Don't just do the bare minimum, like keep figuring out how do you give your boss leverage. And if you keep doing that, you're the employee that he or she is never going to fire. So that was a good one. And then around the same time frame, I sent an email to the big boss who I mentioned earlier, Todd. And I was like, I'm not really sure how to do this. And he just wrote back 3 words. He said, outwork your doubt. That was it.
Oh.
So I was like, well, I won't be sending him an email like that again. But I think that was, work hard and keep trying to take stuff off your boss's plate. Brilliant. Because you make yourself sort of invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good, just on that same theme, it's, when I was an analyst in banking, you think your VP or MD knows everything about the world, and now as I'm getting older I realise that's definitely not the case, and there's no, cliche, but no such thing as stupid questions, like slowly figuring out that the smartest questions are probably the most basic ones, and when you ask them, everyone around you is like, oh yeah. So I think so don't be shy to bring it back to basics, because I think actually that's where a lot of things often fall down, and people don't ask those questions because they think it might be a silly one, which often than not it's the best one. So
yeah. And then I know, Owen, you've already touched on the networking piece, and you've been in New York a bit longer, but for Jamie and Kathy, you're a bit newer as well. Like, how would you encourage people to embrace New York, the networking scene, and get the confidence really to do that? And if you have any other thoughts, Owen, of course. That really
There's no
so
shortage
crucial.
of Irish organisations here, whether it's the organisation that you founded and chair, or it's the Irish Repertory Theatre, or it's the UCD, or I don't know, do Trinity have a version of this? I don't know. Who cares? Maybe your son can set one up sometime. But I know Galway has one. I know that for a fact. There's the IIBN. There's in NYC. I mean, there's all sorts. So just get out, get involved, go to the events. And some of them won't fit with your personality or what you're trying to do, and some of them, clearly will. And that's from an Irish perspective. And then, like I said, just go to the events that you get invited to, even if you're exhausted. Just have a shower, get out the door, and just go.
Yeah. And then what about you too? Like, that you're a bit newer?
Yeah, I think I always kind of reframe it as like building relationships versus, networking, and like really trying to find common ground, but also kind of trying to help people connect to each other. I think it shouldn't be viewed as a zero-sum game. It's not that you should keep contacts, that could help you but don't help your other VP in your job or whatever. It's kind of this reciprocity circle that you're doing. So as much as possible, if you see someone that could help being connected by somebody else, like that's what I definitely try and focus on. And then the other thing is, building networks or friendships, etc., like beyond up and down your level and across your level, not just your peers in private equity, maybe, but is there people more senior than you that you can learn from, more junior? And I think at every stage of my career, I felt that you get the benefit of that. If I had been in commerce and just associated with the commerce crew, I might have not found out about different opportunities and so on. So
sure.
I think that's what I'm thinking about.
That's great. And then I have to ask, so Kathy, finance has been predominantly very male dominated. So, how has your experience been in private equity, and how do you navigate circumstances where you're the only woman in the room? I'm sure it happens often.
Yeah. I was the first female in my company, and I did think like, why have they not hired a female in 10 years? But anyway, I just kind of took a risk. But I think one big reason in private equity is the sort of perception that it's there's a high barrier to entry in theory from the skills you need, but all I can say on that is like they're totally learnable. You can focus, you can do that, get up to scratch to do the interviews and take those risks. And then secondly, the inflexibility point. And I had a different attitude to that before. I kind of like rolled my eyes and thought, okay, I get it when you have kids, but is that such a big deal? But I think in private equity, because they might pay you premium and there's a big old school attitude of work culture, and they want you in person and so on, and just females at every level of your career. It's not just when you're having kids. I'm like planning a wedding at the moment. Who do you think is doing all the wedding planning? When you're in your 20s, like who in your friend group is doing all the organizing? The females. Like it's just this constant thing that at most areas of your life you need more flexibility. So I think how I've sort of dealt with it is at various stages you can advocate for different things for yourself, and you just kind of have to say what you need, or like risk dropping out and never having asked that question, whether it's an extra day at home or whatever you need to do. And I think like day to day, how I try and deal with it is one, you focus on the traits that should be genderless, i.e. hard work, industry, being informed of the industry, attention to detail, all those things. And then I do probably try and lean into, I didn't realize they were male traits, but like looking back of, putting your hand up from going for something when you think you're unqualified, because, guys do that a lot more than females, and you don't have to know all the answers, you can just put yourself out there a bit. And then I think definitely, networking, building relationships widely, not just focused on the females or your gender. And a big part of that, I'm going to say the G word, which is golf. But as an example of something that I didn't, wasn't on my radar, and I was then invited to this. I was the only my board observer in a company. I was the only person on the board who wouldn't be going to this golf day, and I just it was a few months away, and I decided, okay, I feel like I could learn golf in like 3 months. It can't be that hard. Turns out it is kind of hard, but. What I also didn't realize is that a lot of guys are not that good at golf. If someone had told me that, 10 years ago, I would have played a lot more golf.
No need to make this personal.
I'm just gonna roll that back. But but things like that, because as an example, I found this out recently, but golf is one of those key things that males network up and down, because it's every type of person who's playing. It's not driven by skill or whatever. So, but that's just, one example, whatever it is, like finding common ground and putting yourself a bit outside your comfort zone. I think you got to roll with that.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And quick plug, Women with Ambition do have a golf society. So, everybody's welcome. And then just sort of picking up on that, and this is our last question before we'll move to Q&A from the audience, but, as the current and the future leaders in private equity, how do you demonstrate allyship for women? And, what would you say to make sure and encourage women to continue to, get involved and work in the finance industry, the private equity industry?
I don't feel like there's really much differentiation in the number of applications we get between men and women. I think it's pretty 40-60 one way or the other, depends on the year. I do agree with Kathy where a lot of women sort of drop out of the industry is right around the MD level, sort of mid-30s, and frankly, a lot of it's around children and family. Yeah. And that's just a fact. That's what I've seen over and over and over again. So I think the work from home thing has been incredibly helpful, being more understanding, and I think people are a lot more understanding in the US now than they were around simple things like appropriate length of maternity leave. So I have 2 young kids. Actually, they're the exact same age as Jamie's two young kids, which is why we both look so tired. But a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my wife got 6 months, and she works in M&A as well. So, 6 months is 10 years ago might have been 3 months or 2 months. So I think setting up appropriate policies within the company that are understanding towards like what practically women need as they're starting a family, and then having some flexibility around work from home, Thursdays, Fridays. My company is extremely flexible around that. And then I think the idea of potentially secondments or being able to take a break for, beyond your maternity leave if you want, and have your job there for you, when you're coming back at some point. So I do think that definitely the smartest, most ambitious and hardworking analysts and associates are women that I've seen in the last, say, 10 years. But there is definitely a point in the career when I think it becomes more male dominated. And I think that's what I've seen is right around the 30s. So that's probably where they need to fix. I don't think they need to fix the intake.
Yeah. I think it also depends on I think it definitely varies firm to firm as well, and the culture of the firm that you're trying to build. And so, when we hire people, it's the one rule is it should be their last job. And so when you're hiring someone, do you want to work with them for the next 20, 30, 40 years? And with that being the rule, it's like, from a female perspective and obviously family dynamic, it's like the reality is that, yes, there will be periods in those 10 years, 20 years, 30 years where, there will be a period of maternity leave or, as happens, it's, maybe Fridays need to be a day off and it's a 4-day week, or work from home these days so you can collect the kids, bring them to the dentist or a doctor or whatever it may be, and last minute issues, which comes up as much, well, a lot for me at the moment, but that flexibility and understanding that it's not a 5-year work relationship, and so it's an issue then. It's a 20-year commitment that everyone's making, or longer, to each other, and so flexibility is needed. I think that's definitely like changing, and that understanding, and if you're driving that, then I think that definitely helps. And then second bit is, and not just from a I guess female perspective, but just in general as well, it's definitely helped from COVID, I think, like in terms of applicants into PE, like, because at CAPFest before my time, we've been trying to drive that for a long time. 2 of our senior members are female, and they're looking for similar friends, and it was very tough, and it's a big difference since COVID because there's a lot more flexibility now at the senior level, and understanding that, people are as flexible or as efficient and as productive when they are working from home, or they need to, you don't put in place a super rigid 9 to 5 or 7 to midnight or whatever it may be structure. And so I think that understanding from everyone's now definitely helped. But to Owen's point, there's definitely, like, from a child perspective and family dynamic perspective, managing that is like key and enabling it.
And it's actually being driven a lot by the investors now too. So before they'll give you any money, they want to see all the percentages. They want to see your portfolio companies. What's the diversity on the board? What's the diversity in all across the firm? Not just all across the firm, but usually that's fairly diverse in genders. But then you get to the investment team is often skewed male, and so it's just being driven by the industry as well, which is great. So I think it's getting better and better over time, but these things take time, right? Because it's cohorts. Like the 2020 cohort has to mature for 15 years to get into those leadership positions. I'm a father of 2 young girls, so
you want to see a change?
Well, I don't know if I want them to go into private equity.
No,
There's a lot more productive, careers they can have.
All right, we're going to
What a great way to end a private equity.